You're watching Indiana's Own, Wish TV, Channel 8. Now, Mike Ahern, Debby Knox, Fred Kalil, and Stan Wood. Live from Wish TV, this is Indiana's Own, News 8 at 5.
Good evening, it's 5 o'clock, and with this newscast, Channel 8 begins a new concept in local news programming. 90 minutes of local news, but with a difference.
We'd love to spend a full hour and a half with you every night, but we know that for many people that's not possible. That's why beginning tonight, we're presenting 3 newscasts for you in tune at your convenience.
In the next half hour now, Debbie and I will present the day's major news stories, along with Stan's forecast and Fred Kalil's sports, the first look at the breaking news of the day.
Then at 5:30, we'll turn it over to Patty Spitler and Ken Owen, who will host a more alternative informational newscast, complete with consumer news, health reports, and Ray Rice with his feature Indiana's Own.
And then at 6 o'clock, Debbie and I return with the newscast you've come to expect every night, our regular report of the day's top news at 6 o'clock.
We think that you'll like this new format. No matter what your schedule, now you can be informed at any time throughout the early evening hours.
So let's get to work doing just that.
Right.
Our lead story tonight. A career criminal who vowed never to be taken alive was shot and killed this morning by an off-duty Indianapolis police officer during a robbery. Ethel Micah is in our newsroom with the story. Ethel?
Mike, Patrolman Clifford Van Buskirk was working security at the Holiday Inn at 21st and Shadeland Avenue at 1:30 this morning when he heard the hotel clerk scream. That's when 32-year-old Wesley Scott Houchin allegedly pulled a gun on the woman, demanding money. The Holiday Inn hotel clerk was alone in the lobby when Wesley Houchin reportedly entered with a gun, barking demands.
Ask him, where is the money? Where's the money drawer? Can you open the safe?
Police accounts say Officer Clifford Van Buskirk saw the gunman as he vaulted over the counter attempting to leave. The officer yelled for Houchin to stop.
He turned and pulled the gun up and pointed it at Officer Van Buskirk. At this time, he fired one shot, and it struck the man in the right side.
Houchin died a short time later. Serving time on a work release program in Indianapolis, the convicted forgerer had been at large for nearly 2 months.
He arrived here at the center of the 6th of July and failed to come back from temporary leave looking for employment on the 17th of July.
Since then, police believe Houchin has robbed 4 hotels, 2 at a time in Indianapolis and Beech Grove.
While the first one was being investigated, he was up the street doing a second one, and it's happened several times here in the county.
Houchin is believed to have robbed this Sheridan Inn a short distance away and a short time before hitting the Holiday Inn.
Houchin's death brings to an end a career of crime that began when the Whiteland, Indiana man was a teenager.
When he was around 18, he stole a bunch of checks and was charged with forgery back then, and since then he's been in and out of prisons all his life.
For what?
For forgery and theft and house burglary.
Whiteland Town Marshal Otto Lewis has known Houchin and his family for more than 25 years. He says he wasn't surprised by how the young man's life ended.
Apparently he's the type that doesn't want to work. He wants to get the easy way, and if he's just the type that's institutionalized the rest of his life.
Lewis says Houchin escaped once before from prison in Pendleton and vowed then never to be taken alive again. He was due to be paroled in January. Officer Van Buskirk was not injured as Houchin never got a shot off during the incident. As is the practice, the officer has been put on desk duty pending an investigation of the shooting by the Police Firearms Review Board. Mike?
Okay, Ethel, thanks very much. Ethel Micah reporting from our newsroom.
Well, the state Supreme Court today heard arguments on the question, should testimony and deliberations be public when it involves a review board hearing allegations of police misconduct. The case dates back to 1986 when Marion County deputies shot and killed Belinda Hightaker. The deputies claim the woman was deranged and that she charged at them with a kitchen knife. Well, police investigators charged 2 deputies with official misconduct. Members of a merit board panel were then supposed to review the allegations, but the issue has been in limbo since the board refused to allow reporters to cover those hearings. The media went to court, leading to today's high court arguments.
Media decide what's fair. They're not involved in this proceeding. It's between the merit board, the sheriff that brings the charges, and the deputy that's about to be disciplined. So fairness, I don't think, is a question of, is it fair to the public? It's a question, is it fair to the deputies?
The public, in addition to the police officers, that the public has an interest in the conduct of police action, and that public safety and police conduct are a matter of grave public concern.
On Your Side reporter Mike Androvette will have that full story tonight at 5:30.
The trial of two Hancock County brothers accused of an April murder has been put on hold. Hancock Superior Court Judge Richard Payne today called a mistrial in the case of Stan and Ross Wright after prosecutors complained of a defense tactic. Last week, during opening arguments, defense attorney Richard Schreiber mentioned a polygraph test given to alleged co-conspirator Teresa Freeland. That's what prompted the mistrial.
I don't think it's a setback at all. I think that the judge has indicated, as I heard his ruling, is that while he may think that what was done was inappropriate for opening statement, he thinks it is something that, if handled in a pretrial stage, may be something that we can reach an agreement on.
Teresa Freeland has already pleaded guilty to conspiring to kill her husband, Ed Freeland. The Wright brothers allegedly helped. A new trial date has been tentatively set for late October. Housing and Urban Development Secretary Jack Kemp is spending this day in Indianapolis for what amounts to a multi-purpose campaign. Kemp visited two East Side housing projects in an effort to promote his priorities for HUD and to focus attention on where the agency is headed following a scandal under the previous administration. Here, Kemp visited a former public housing project that is being turned into condominiums by a private developer.
If we can bring home ownership to low-income communities and people in the 90s, I frankly believe this is the second chapter of the great civil rights revolution that began in the 50s when a young black woman in Montgomery, Alabama refused to give up her seat on a bus.
Kemp also had some strictly political motives for his visit here today. He hosted a fundraising luncheon for Mayor Hudnut and at this moment is hosting a fundraiser for Senator Dan Coates.
Well, and now we go live to the newsroom where Patty Spitler and Ken Owen are standing by to tell us what's coming up at 5:30.
Yes, Debbie and Mike, what's coming up, I think, first off, we have a new face here.
Well.
Ken Owen joins our newsroom and comes to Indianapolis with lots of credits. We'll talk about that at 5:30 a little bit so you can get to know him.
And delighted to be back, I might add.
Well, good.
Really.
We're glad to have you. We'd like to tell you a little bit about what's coming up tonight at 5:30 for your entertainment and information. First off, hundreds of people lined up at Pizza Huts throughout Indianapolis this afternoon to get free pizzas. Who says there's no such thing as a free lunch? We'll tell you what is behind all of the pizza mania.
And we can promise you that story definitely carries a kick. Also coming up tonight at 5:30, if you're worried about getting wrinkles, we'll show you some ways that you can slow the aging process. Certainly some news you can use this afternoon.
Indeed it is, Ken. That's it. Mike and Debbie, we'll see you at 5:30.
Patty, Ken, thanks very much. See you then. And still coming on News 8 at 5 o'clock, more violence today in Colombia.
And in East Germany, it's being called the largest exodus of refugees since 1961 when the Berlin Wall was built.
At 1/3 of American colleges, less than 20% of all student athletes graduate. Could a bill before Congress change that? Coming up on News 8, we'll take a look at the controversial debate.
Charges could be filed today against an Indianapolis man who was involved in an alcohol-related accident in Johnson County last night that killed 2 people and injured 7 others. Authorities say 29-year-old Kevin Lockhart ran into a car, killing 27-year-old Tina Hamilton and her 7-year-old son, Dusty. Authorities say Tina's husband and her other 4 children were hospitalized, along with 39-year-old Wayne Rush, who was a passenger in the Lockhart truck. Well, 50 residents of Danville, New Hampshire are being kept away from their homes for the second day as a huge pile of tires continues to burn. Surrounding communities have pitched in to help keep the fire from spreading. Authorities say no one has been injured in the blaze, and it could be some time until a cause can be determined.
The Federal Aviation Administration today announced it's going to order structural modifications to ensure the safety of 1,100 older McDonnell Douglas jetliners flown by U.S. carriers. This comes on the heels of a recommendation from an industry government task force to increase the plane safety.
The working group is today recommending that approximately 159 of these service bulletins be revised to call for modifications or replacement of material on component parts rather than a continued inspection.
The FAA order affects older DC-10s, DC-9s, DC-8s, and the MD-80 aircraft.
In Colombia, more violence occurred today in the nation's main cocaine-producing region. Police say the former mayor of Medellin and his driver were gunned down by masked gunmen as they drove to work. Pablo Gonzalez organized a group called Movement for Peace last month after the region's governor was assassinated. 2 others involved in the group also face death threats. The assassination comes as 2 cases linked to the Medellin begin in U.S. courts. In Atlanta, Eduardo Martinez Romero appeared before a federal magistrate and pleaded innocent to charges that he laundered more than $1 billion in drug money. He's been ordered held with bail pending the start of his trial. If convicted, Martinez could receive 30 years in prison under Colombian law or life under U.S. law. And in Jacksonville, Florida, a jury is being selected in the trial of 5 men facing charges for alleged drug smuggling. They're all suspected of connections with the Medellin cartel.
The gates to freedom were opened today as thousands of East Germans headed across the border into Hungary. Shouts of "free at last" were heard as East Germans drove and even walked into the West. Today's historic moment is the first independent move Hungary has made since the communist takeover in 1948. Doctors treating former President Ronald Reagan say he is making such a speedy recovery now that he may even be sent home tomorrow. Reagan entered the hospital last Friday to have a blood clot removed from his brain. This is the second blood clot Reagan has had since he fell off his horse in April.
Well, less than 1 in 5 basketball and football players in many American colleges graduate from that college. Well, do any Indiana schools fall in that shocking category? It's not known because schools do not have to publish graduation rates. As News 8's Leslie Olson reports now, that law has become a political football in Washington as lawmakers prepare to discuss changing it tomorrow.
That might be the time for you to maybe set up an appointment with a professor.
Once a week, every Indiana University student-athlete is required to meet with an academic counselor.
We set up schedules, provide tutoring, monitor them. We meet with the students every week. We provide study tables, any kind of support that we think will help.
Basketball coach Bob Knight is known for requiring good grades as well as good basketball skills. Football coach Bill Mallory has the same policy. But it is not known how many of their athletes graduate. A congressional investigation of Division I schools such as IU shows nationwide poor graduation rates. Tomorrow, a Senate subcommittee will discuss a bill requiring schools to publish their statistics. The main opponent of the bill is the NCAA, which claims publishing graduation rates would violate federal privacy laws. What if a school had only one graduating senior in a sport and that student didn't graduate? The student would be easily recognizable and the school would get a 0 graduation rating. IU's athletic director, who oversees the academic counseling program, also opposes the bill.
Recruited athletes can leave, but they count in your statistics for all 5 years, whether they stay 1 day or they stay 5 years.
However, IU's assistant basketball coach Ron Felling says releasing stats could help his recruiting efforts while hurting others.
I think you've got to live by just what your program is doing. And I think we would be more than happy, and I know that to release our graduation rates because we feel that as an academic institution we're higher than most in this country.
Many of the players are on scholarships and their sports programs receive federal dollars. Another reason in favor of accountability which will be discussed by lawmakers. Leslie Olson, Wish TV, News 8.
Well, after a bumpy Saturday and a pleasant Sunday, we'll find out what Santa has in store for us after this.
Sounds like you had a good time this weekend, pumping water out of your basement.
Oh, I'll tell you. That,
what a mess,
was that something? All the tree limbs out on the streets that next morning?
I'll tell you, I'm trying to buy stock in a sump pump company. If I do, you'll see me in a Rolls Royce in about 2 weeks. Otherwise, I'll be pumping out the basement the way you guys had to. Well, not a bad day right now. It is cloudy out there, but that's helping to make the temperature quite comfortable. It's 74 degrees at the airport and 77 downtown. Our dew point at 50 degrees, relative humidity under control at 57%. A light breeze from the north at 6 miles per hour, and we have steady barometric pressure at 30.09 inches of mercury. Now, you remember Saturday. Oh, yes, we had a cold front that swept through and brought us all kinds of heavy weather. Now then, we have 2 for the price of 1. There's a second little trough moving toward Indiana. We begin our satellite loop at 5 o'clock this morning to show you how rapidly this system down here has pushed its clouds into the central part of the Ohio Valley. That's not the cold front. That's an upper-level disturbance. So I guess you'd say we have 3 for the price of 1. The cold front is up here, and the weekend weather maker is out along the Appalachian chain. You'll notice a little bit of a curl of cloudiness well offshore from New England. That's the tropical storm that once was Hurricane Gabrielle, and it's still bringing some pretty good surf to the shores of Nova Scotia. Now then, at 5 o'clock, our weather map shows yesterday and Saturday's weather maker out here along the Appalachian chain, the strong cold front, a weak wind moving rapidly eastward. This thing is moving about 40 to 50 miles per hour, so it'll cross our state during the hours that we're asleep. And then tomorrow, a weak high pressure will build in. There's not a lot of moisture for this front to play with, so we don't think it's going to get us wet here at Midstate, but there could be a few sprinkles in the southern part of Indiana. Tomorrow morning, then, we'll show you that front moving through and away from Indiana. High pressure building in here, so it'll bring us a split day with some sunshine and some clouds. It may be a lingering sprinkle or two way down near the Ohio River. As far as temperatures tomorrow, they'll be quite comfortable. We're looking for 70s up and down the Ohio Valley. My immediate forecast for you tonight, partly cloudy to cloudy. Overnight low about 59 degrees. Our wind will be from the northwest at 10 miles per hour. Then for Tuesday, pretty nice day, partly sunny and fresh. I like that word because it describes the kind of weather you're going to have tomorrow, a high of 72 and a nice breeze from the north. Tomorrow night, clouding up again as another system moves toward us, our overnight low 60. And then on Wednesday, cloudy with some light rain at times. You didn't need that, Mike. Our high will be about 70. All right, let's take a further look. Thursday, some clouds and about 70 for the high. And then Friday and Saturday look ideal. Fair weather regime moving in with highs in the low to mid-70s. Any complaints out there?
We'll buy that one.
Nice.
Okay. Terrific forecast. 70s are just about right for this time. Thank you, Stan. Coming up next, let's join Fred, Kalil, and Anderson where they're playing high school football on Monday. Freddie, what's going on?
Well, they started on Friday. They're just now finishing up. We'll explain. Madison Heights and Highland. Sports Live on News 8 at 5 is coming up next.
Indianapolis has even more reason to cheer today. The Indianapolis Indians are back home with yet another championship. Yesterday, the Tribe beat the Richmond Braves 7-4 to sweep the AAA Classic 4-0. Mayor Hudnut led a welcoming committee today that greeted the Indians as they arrived at the airport this morning. Combined with this year's American Association Championship, yesterday's win gives the Tribe 6 crowns in the past 4 years.
It was almost anticlimactic, though, after winning the championship for the association, but the guys really rose to the occasion. We didn't want to mess around. We didn't want to string this thing out, and they went after it hungrily, and they got it.
It wasn't a very big crowd, though. About 20 fans were on hand to welcome the Indians home this morning after a tremendous achievement.
Let's go up to Anderson now, where Freddie's watching a football game Monday afternoon. Huh,
No,
Fred?
it's the 20th anniversary of Monday Night Football, and we've got Monday Night Football going on right here between Madison Heights and Highland. We are live in Anderson. The game was called, obviously, Friday because of the big boomers, the thunderstorms. Then Saturday they couldn't play it, so they're playing it tonight. The game was resumed with 5:10 to go in the third quarter. Madison Heights had the football on its own 22. It was 4th and 14 with the score 21-13, Madison Heights leading. But right now, it's 21-19. Anderson Highland has just scored a touchdown. Last night, the Indians, as Mike said, won the AAA Classic in a sweep, 4 straight over the Richmond Braves. Darryl Motley a 2-run double, 7-4, the Tribe won. And yesterday in the Dome, Jerry Rice's big play broke the Colts back. And I want you to watch 56, Fred Young. Because of that blitz, 79, Harvey Armstrong, that's not Arnold Palmer, that's Harvey Armstrong, ran into Eugene Daniel. That completed the pass to Jerry Rice. That allowed Jerry to get wide open. The final 30-24, the Niners win. Jim Barber spent the midday with Coach Ron Meyer. He'll have a complete report coming up on News 8 at 6 o'clock. On to golf now. We've got a kickoff return. Let's get it right here. All right. Well, Madison Heights just ran the kickoff back for a touchdown. You saw it right up the sideline there. 27-19 the score, and the extra point will be coming. All right, so Madison Heights now leads at 27-19. We were talking about golf. Gary Poyer won the GTE North Classic for the 2nd year in a row, but one of the greatest and most popular players ever in the history of golf celebrated his 60th birthday yesterday. Dick Ray tonight profiles the great Arnold Palmer.
It's one of the most recognizable scenes in all of sports and what's kept Arnold Palmer driven on the golf course through 4 decades of competition.
The fact that that people still enjoy coming out and seeing me play, or that I have the relationship with the galleries that I've had over the years and still seem to have, is just very exhilarating to me.
In reaching this latest personal milestone, Arnold Palmer is learning more and more about his far-reaching impact.
I'm getting birthday cards from Yugoslavia, and that's not a joke. I mean, actual cards are coming from all over the world, and that just continues to amaze me.
The adoration has been rekindled with a strong showing at last month's PGA Championship. That in itself has been a major source of encouragement.
I play in that championship because back in the back of my mind somewhere, there's still the remote thought that I might win that championship. And this year. Had my short game been as good as it was a few years ago, from the way I played from tee to green, I could have won that championship.
It's been a while since a player has come along to dominate the world of golf as Palmer and Jack Nicklaus did in the 60s. The man still recognized as the king says one basic element is needed.
To do well and to dominate, if anyone's ever going to dominate golf in any way, shape, or form, again, they're going to have to be strong. The one thing they're going to have to be, the prerequisite to it, is being strong and being able to hit the golf ball a long way.
The memories and thrills are lasting. His very presence stirs up 35 outstanding years of achievement. Dick Ray, Wish TV, Sports 8.
Thank you very much, Dick. We'll send it back to you. I couldn't believe that kid ran the touchdown back right in front of us. 27-19, 4:03 to go. We're back live at 6.
Yeah, you set that up, Fred. You know you did.
How can you set it up?
Thanks, Freddie. Fred Kalil. Speaking of birthdays, we talked about Arnold Palmer's there. Sunday also marked a birth of a brand new kind of lottery, Oregon's Pro Football Lottery. Thousands of fans watched and wagered on Sunday's NFL games, and it was all perfectly legal this time. In fact, it was the first ever government-run football pool. The lottery took in about $221,000 on its first weekend. That is way under what officials had anticipated, but they say wagering should move up as players become more familiar with both the betting deadlines and the methods of playing the game. Results won't be announced until later tonight. Well, it turns out this is a day of firsts around here. Tonight we introduce a brand new half-hour newscast on Channel 8. One with a familiar face and one face that will soon be familiar to all of us, I think.
They are our new neighbors right next door, Patty Spitler and Ken Owen, who will keep us up to date on consumer news, health tips, entertainment reports. Mike and I will be back at 6 o'clock with our regular newscast, but now, welcome, and let's find out what's making news in your corner of the world.
Hello,
Hi,
neighbors.
Ken. Yes.
Hello. Well, Mike and Debbie, how are you tonight?
Real good.
I take it I have the familiar face.
I think you have the familiar. You're right, Patty.
Thank you very much. We're glad you're joining us this evening. I'm Patty Spitler. This is Ken Owen, and here's what we'll have for you tonight at 5:30. There was such a thing as a free lunch today for Colts fans who were at the game yesterday. Imagine 60,000 free pizzas.
I'm Mike Andrevet. More than 3 years after Valenda Hightaker was shot and killed by sheriff's deputies, the state Supreme Court must decide whether an investigation into the officer's conduct must be held in public. That story coming up on your side.
Usually, they're the first sign we're getting older, wrinkles. But is there a way to slow the aging process? Debbie joins us with a health scene report.
I'm Ray Rice of the governor's residence, where a special celebration is underway for a special book about Indiana's own. We'll have a live eye report on that coming up on News 8.
We'll have those stories and much more on the inaugural edition of News 8 at 5:30. Stay with us.
You're watching Indiana's Own, Wish TV, Channel 8. Now, Patty Spitler, Ken Owen, Ray Rice with Indiana's Own, and Mike Andrevet on your side. Live from Wish TV, this is News 8 at 5:30.
And good evening. We are all set with a new set here this evening. We'd like you to welcome Ken Owen. We'll hear more from him in just a moment. This is our inaugural 5:30 newscast, and we begin with a story of an Indianapolis dentist who treated 60,000 people to lunch.
But you know, Patty, he did it without using any of his own dough. In fact, it was his toe that made the treat possible. News 8's David Barris has our story.
It is a dentist's hands which get the most attention. They guide the instruments which keep a patient's teeth healthy. But in the case of 27-year-old West Side dentist Brian Kirkwood, it is his right foot that may long be remembered. What Dr. Kirkwood managed to do was come here during halftime and kick 3 field goals in a row. The first from the goal line. That got him and his wife free pizza for a year. The second was from the 10-yard line. That got everyone in the stands a free medium drink. The third was from this spot, the 20-yard line. That got everyone in the stands a free medium drink and a free personal pan pizza.
Makes me feel great that I could win pizza for everybody. That's kind of what I was hoping for.
Thanks a lot. Nice kicks.
But with 60,100 potentially free pizzas, those kicks made lines at lunch long. A wait of 30 minutes or more at this Pizza Hut. In the kitchen, it was chaos. They couldn't make the dough fast enough.
To have someone do it again, that'll give us a little bit of an opportunity to make a few changes and handle the rush that we
didn't anticipate to be as great. We'll be ready a little bit more next time.
There could be 7 next times. The promotion will be a part of all Colts home games. But then again, there may never be another Brian Kirkwood. Before dentistry, he was a punter for New Palestine High School. Because he knew a week in advance he'd have the opportunity to kick, he spent it practicing. As for his future, Kirkwood knows it's dentistry, not football. Fame, he agrees, is fleeting.
I don't think anybody's going to remember it for a while. You know, in a few days after the pizza's worn off, and they'll forget me.
But they won't forget till the pizza's gone. David Barris, Wish TV, News 8.
And by the way, you can still get your free pizza. Just cash in your ticket anytime before 11 o'clock tonight. Dr. Kirkwood says he is going in later tonight. He wants to avoid all the crowds. And if you're going to calculate exactly what it is costing Pizza Hut, well, the free pizza and drink normally cost $3 to $3.50 each.
It's going to cost Pizza Hut itself about $150,000 too. One of Pizza Hut's biggest competitors may soon be up for sale. Domino's pizza owner Tom Monahan says he's considering selling his pizza chain because he would like to spend more time with his charity programs. Domino's Pizza was founded in 1960 in the Detroit suburb of Ypsilanti. In 29 years, it has grown to a $2.9 billion enterprise with shops all over the country.
Patty, it's now been 3.5 years since 2 Marion County deputies shot and killed Valenda Hightaker. For her relatives and for the deputies as well, it's been 3.5 years of limbo. In death, Valenda Hightaker is at the center of a dispute about basic rights. The public's right to know is at conflict with a police officer's right to privacy. In a controversy heard today by the Indiana Supreme Court, On Your Side reporter Mike Andervet has been involved in this case since the beginning. Mike, you were one of the reporters who first sued the Sheriff's Department back in 1986.
That's because I believe then and I believe now that the public has a right to know what their police are doing. The news media, along with the ICLU, sued to enforce that belief. But police officers have beliefs too. They believe that they're second-guessed too much, that there are too many eyes already looking over their shoulder. So long after Valenda Hightaker's death, those two points of view clash in the Supreme Court.
She was deranged. She charged at them with a kitchen knife. That is how deputies Mike Berry and Rex Thompson defended their decision to shoot and fatally wound Valenda Hightaker. A private department probe charged the deputies with violating policy for misconduct just before the shooting.
By failure to take appropriate action.
Public controversy caused police leaders to promise open disciplinary hearings. But when the Citizens Merit Board convened, members sought to close the door. Today, before the Supreme Court, law enforcement lawyers argued that fairness required charges of police misconduct be considered in private.
People that have to decide if a certain witness was credible, call him a liar, aren't going to do that in public. They would do it in private, and ultimately justice would be served because the correct decision would be made, not simply the safest or more cosmetic decision.
News media lawyers suggested because police carry guns, their actions should be scrutinized closer than other public employees.
And the public has a right to know not only what the decision is, what the factors are that led them to that decision, and what the debate was between them before they reached that decision.
The state open door law allows government officials to hold private executive sessions to consider employee discipline. But a separate Sheriff's Review Board law refers to fair public hearings. Justices asked few questions about the issue of hearing testimony in public, but seemed concerned that board members could be forced to discuss and decide a deputy's fate in public. Meanwhile, for the Hightaker family, little has changed since 1986, when even then, impatience crowded their feelings of grief.
Well, I think it's important that the evidence is held in an open hearing, like it might be in a court, so people can hear and know what really happened.
Deputies Berry and Thompson remain on the force. Both were taken out of circulation for a while, but now, Patty and Ken, they're both back on active duty.
Mike, does the waiting end today with a decision from the Supreme Court?
Supreme Court did not decide anything today. The wait could be anything from a couple of weeks to a couple of months. My bet is a couple of months for the decision.
Okay, do you have any feel for how the court will decide?
You know, it's always a minefield to try to predict what a court would do. The court today seemed concerned about the notion that the public could view the deliberations, less concerned that the board could hear and the public could hear testimony. But it's hard to know exactly what the court can do.
Well, we'll be watching and waiting for more on your report.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you. And now we have Mike Ahern. I see he made it down there. He's standing by in the newsroom to tell us what's coming up at 6 o'clock, Mike.
Okay, Patty, Ken, thanks very much. Coming up in about 20 minutes or so at 6 o'clock, Debbie and I will tell you about a holdup at an Indianapolis Holiday Inn this morning which left one man dead after he was shot by an off-duty Indianapolis police officer. And a mistrial was declared today in the trial of Stan and Ross Wright. They are the brothers who have been accused of killing a New Palestine man. We'll have more on that as well. And Coach Ron Meyer tonight's going to do a little bit of second guessing. Also, there's Jack Kemp, the HUD secretary in town today. We'll tell you why he was in Indianapolis. And in sports this evening, Fred Kalil will tell us about the head coach of the Indianapolis Colts doing a little second guessing about the loss to the 49ers on Sunday. You'll want to hear what he has to say. Coming up in just a few minutes. Now back to you.
Okay, thank you. Of course, we'll be around for that. Now we have just a moment to sit back for just a moment. I see Ken's getting ready to unbutton his jacket button so we can relax for just a moment. It's time to breathe and welcome Ken Owen to News 8. And also back to Indianapolis. You're no stranger to this city.
Well, I'm delighted to be back. I'm from Chicago originally, and I went to DePauw University in Greencastle. Used to work in radio here at WIRE and IBC, sure. And then when Channel 59 went on the air back in the dark ages, I was the first person on that station when they used to have a newscast. So I am delighted to be back in Indianapolis. A lot of my college friends live here.
Is that the main reason why you wanted to come back home again?
Well, I love Indianapolis just as a city. The people here are so warm, and there's so much to do. And of course, it's gotten better since I left in 1984. It's close to home, and it has all the amenities of a place like Chicago, but you don't have to pay $10 to park, and don't have to
you
worry
don't?
about
I'll have to tell you about that. We do have to pay $10.
I have something to learn during the break, I guess.
Hey, and what's been the biggest challenge for moving back?
The biggest challenge is just gearing up for this broadcast, and we were excited about this and glad we're off and running with that, but also my furniture and all my worldly possessions are back in North Carolina from whence I came, so hopefully soon we can move into the next phase of life, a new house, and have dishes and things like that.
Well, good. And I must tell you, too, I talked to Ken before, and he says he has 2 cats, so I think he's an okay
We hit it off right
guy.
off the bat.
All right.
Well, still to come tonight on this first edition of 5:30 News 8 at 5:30. We'll give you a sneak preview of the Ruth Lilly Center. It's a sort of children's museum of science and medicine.
And also, this is very interesting. Debbie joins us with some advice on how to deal with wrinkles.
Would you like to get rid of your wrinkles? This is Debbie Knox. We'll explore several techniques to erase the sags and bags coming up on The Health Scene.
Remember the movie Fantastic Voyage, where people were miniaturized and took a trip through the human body? Well, soon folks in central Indiana can take a fantastic voyage without the hassles. The new Ruth Lilly Center for Health Education is closing in on its late October opening date. The center has high-tech exhibits that will show guests how the human body works. For instance, well, this may look like a science fiction movie, but it's actually a depiction of a human cell. The center will be open to children and adults.
We'll have programs with a focus on prevention in the areas of family living education, general health and nutrition, and substance abuse prevention. And I think with exciting teaching that we can provide some new dynamic ways in order to make learning interesting.
The center also includes a drug education exhibit. Through an interactive program, it will be able to show exactly how drinking and drugs can affect your driving. The center was built with money from individuals, corporations, and foundations.
Consumers have scored a victory in the battle against pesticides on foods. Today in Washington, an environmental group known as the National Toxics Campaign announced what it claims is a really big breakthrough. The campaign claims it has signed up 6 grocery chains and a pledge to quit selling fresh fruits and vegetables sprayed with cancer-causing pesticides. In all, this represents fewer than 200 stores, and most of them are in Arizona and California. Meanwhile, officials from the National Food Institute say this move is simply another scare tactic from environmentalists.
On a regular basis, our friend, our neighbor to the east there, Debbie Knox will be joining us with Health Scene tonight. And Debbie, you have some news for us who are getting crow's feet and worried about perhaps some lines popping up on our faces.
That's right. Well, and by the way,
thank you.
Congratulations. I'm glad you're here.
I am delighted to be here, and everybody's made it so easy for me.
Break a leg.
So I owe it to you folks.
Patty, you're always great. Well, yes, we are talking about wrinkles tonight, and wrinkles are the first sign of aging, as you just heard Ken say, but now there are a lot of alternatives to slow the aging process down. Which one is for you, and what kind of improvement can you expect? Well, I looked into that for tonight's Health Scene Report. This woman got the works: a facelift, chemical peel, and collagen injections. Well, did they work? Judge for yourself. What are these different procedures, and what can they do? Well, a facelift surgically lifts and tightens the facial muscles and skin. It's the gold standard, requires an anesthetic, and it lasts. A chemical peel burns off the top layer of skin, and recovery time is about 2 weeks.
It's more long-lasting, and it has a better effect on the deeper expression lines. It tightens the skin about 20% and tightens those collagen fibers, but it may lighten your skin slightly.
And collagen or micro-lipo injections. In the micro-lipo technique, fat cells, in this case from the buttocks, are extracted and then injected under a wrinkle in the face. No rejection in this, but it may not be permanent. Let's look at some people who've undergone these procedures. On the right, before collagen injections. On the left, after. This picture shows a woman before a chemical peel. This is the same woman afterwards. And this woman wanted the deep furrows removed from her mouth area. She had the micro-lipo injections of her own fat, and 2 months later, this is what she looked like. Anyone who's had plastic surgery, like Cher, will tell you that it is not painless. So how can you avoid early wrinkling? Stay out of the sun, and
I'd use Retin-A. I think that under a doctor's guidance, Retin-A can be extremely effective in helping to provide a good skin texture.
Retin-A is the message there. Stay out of the sun and use Retin-A.
And how much does the injection cost, the collagen?
I think of around $200 an injection or per treatment, and it can be thousands of dollars, of course, for a facelift, but that's probably the cheaper alternative for some folks.
Well, thank you, Debbie.
Hey, welcome.
Thank you. Good to see you over here.
Thanks.
Come
Nice
back
to see
again
you. I
tomorrow.
will.
Okay. Coming up, there's some good news on the health scene today. News 8 family grew by 1 overnight. Birth of little Jonathan Neal Moore. There he is. You know him. Jonathan is the second child of Neil and Kathy Moore. They have a 3.5-year-old daughter named Allison. Actually, Jonathan isn't so little. He weighed in 9 pounds 7 ounces. Mom and dad and new son are doing just fine. All three deserve the Hustle Award. Neil, the father, anchored last night's 11 o'clock newscast on Channel 8, and then he hustled to the hospital where Jonathan was delivered after less than 3 hours of active labor, and that was at 1:52 this morning. So congratulations to him, and of course to the mother as well.
Neil was really smiling there. He's got a lot to be
Yes,
proud of. Cute
he
kid.
does.
Well, coming up next on News 8 at 5:30, Stan Wood has our weather forecast for us.
And pleased as punch to announce Indiana's own Ray Rice is live at the governor's mansion.
In fact, here he is. This book, Where We Live, is about Indiana and its people, and I'll be back with the Live Eye report next.
Another one of our neighbors joins us now, Stan Wood, with a weather forecast. It's cooling off a little.
It is indeed. By the way, congratulations. I've got the best seat in the house. These chairs are nice. You've got a nice set here, and
We made that seat just for your seat.
I could just almost take a nap right here. By the way, in honor of your debut, Ken and Patty, an old friend of ours is back, the roving thermometer. Remember him?
Sure.
Okay, what we do is we send it out into the Channel 8 viewing area to find out what kind of weather's happening in some of the smaller communities. And if they're having an event, we're glad to publicize that. The Riley Wranglers, yes indeed, their annual introduction to square dancing comes up this Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. in the Memorial Building over there in Greenville, Indiana. And they'd like you to reserve your spots, so there's the number to call in Greenfield. By the way, the roving thermometer checked in there a moment ago and said it's a pleasant 73 degrees under some cloud in Greenfield, Indiana. And we'll be doing this, I think, every day, so that's just a little extra Philip will add to you. Now then, I know you guys will be working on tomorrow's show as soon as we finish this one, but a lot of folks go out, what, maybe bowling or choir practice tonight? They need to know what the weather's going to be. I've got Stan's shortcast for them. How about that? That'll be a daily feature, too. So, if you're going to be out and about tonight, here's the shortcast. Variable cloudiness, overnight low about 59 degrees. And then for your Tuesday, partly sunny with a high of 72. And you can't beat that with a large rock.
No.
In a nutshell. That's wonderful. Thank you, Stan.
You bet.
I want to go out and go bowling now that you suggested
Can I
that.
come back here every day and do this?
I think you
We're
can.
counting on you.
Okay, I'll see you tomorrow.
You got the
Thank you,
job.
Stan.
Coming up now, we have another daily contribution to our news at 5:30. Going to come from News 8's Ray Rice, and Ray will offer his perspective of unique people and events and places. And this evening, Ray joins us live from the governor's residence, where a special event is now underway. Good evening, Ray.
Good evening, Patty, and thank you. And as you can see, I'm joined this evening by the First Lady of the state of Indiana, and this is Scott Russell Sanders, who is a writer. And these people are involved in a book because this is a celebration tonight about a very special book that is like none other. It's called Where We Live, and it's a series of essays about Indiana. And this is really a very good First Indiana's Own for the 5:30 segment because the book is about people, it's about Hoosiers, and there is something here to which we can each relate. As we look at some Indiana images, we can say that this is a book not so much about places and things, but it's about people, Hoosiers, and where we live. A dozen leading Hoosier writers were asked to contribute their own Indiana experience, and what is shared is not nostalgia, but a contemporary anthology. It is also not designed to be a representative cross-section of the Indiana experience, but as you read it, you will see a composite portrait emerge. David Hoppy is the Senior Program Officer with the Indiana Humanities Council.
We hear voices coming from various cities around the state, voices coming from rural settings. We hear people talking about various types of ethnic experience, older voices and younger voices as well. And so when all of those voices form a chorus, one begins to get a sense really of the diversity of the state.
The very first essay in the book is written by Scott Russell Sanders. The essay is titled Landscape and Imagination. And Mrs. Sanders, you were saying that people don't move to Indiana for the scenery. I suspect that's accurate.
Well, some people, I'm sure, have moved to Indiana for its scenery. We don't think of Indiana as being a place that's spectacularly beautiful, like New England or like the Sierras or like the Pacific rainforest. But it's a place whose beauties, I think, are more subtle and that require keener perception.
And of course, we all relate to that, being Hoosiers.
We tend to take for granted what we see around us, things which are a customary part of our world, whether it's a barn in the distance with a silo beside it, or whether it's the hills in southern Indiana or the meandering limestone creeks. We tend to take those things for granted, and after a while, we don't see them. It's easier to see them when we return to them from elsewhere.
It is a wonderful essay, and I also have to point out just one of 12 in this wonderful book. And Mrs. Bayh is hosting the reception this evening to announce publication of the book. And as an avid reader, what do you think of it?
Well, the governor and I very much enjoyed the book. We enjoyed it because it showed a tremendous love for Indiana and a hard look at Indiana and how we can make Indiana a better place.
Of course, this is Literacy Month, so it ties right in.
Absolutely, and if you'll let me give my hotline number, we can talk to all those non-readers. The number, if you don't know how to read and would like to learn how to read this book, is 1-800-624-7585.
Very good, and thank you for being with. I love your house. Ken and Patty?
I love your house. Thank you, Ray. Is the book available now?
Yes, it is. It's available in bookstores across the state. And of course, funding for the reception was provided by Borders, so I assume they're also selling the book as well. Okay.
Thank you, Ray. Nice job. We'll see you every night here at 5:30. Ray will feature Indiana's Own each evening, as I said, and if you know of something or someplace or person who is Indiana's Own, please let Ray know. Write to Ray Rice, care of Wish TV. The number's right there on your screen. Post Office Box 7088, Indianapolis, Indiana, and our zip code here is 46207.
We will be right back, but first, here's a look at what's ahead tonight on Channel 8.
People like to see Zsa Zsa Gabor, and her trial on a highway misdemeanor is underway. A lot of people are checking that out. Jury selection started today. She is charged with disorderly conduct. She's having an expired registration, having an open container of alcohol in her car, I believe it was a Rolls Royce, and then slapping the officer who pulled her over, and that's the way it is, darling.
But she's still smiling, and that's
yes, it looks good.
And we're still smiling. Thank you for joining us tonight after our first 5:30 edition of News 8. We'll be back tomorrow afternoon at 5:30.
Yes,
now it's time to check in with our neighbors once again, Mike and Debbie, and see what's happening at 6 o'clock. How are you folks?
Just fine, Ken. Patty, thanks very much.
Thanks
nice
a lot.
job.
Thank you.
See you tomorrow at 5:30. Coming up on News 8 now at 6 o'clock, Debbie and I will have these stories for you.
The murder trial of two brothers has been put on hold temporarily. I'm Rick Dawson. A report from Greenfield next on News 8.
Also tonight, Dr. Pravin Thakur is in trouble again, this time with his ex-wife. We'll tell you why.
We'll explain why this Indianapolis drug company is in trouble with the federal government.
In sports this evening, the Colts' Ron Meyer does a little Monday morning quarterbacking following his team's loss in the season opener.
I'm Stan the Weatherman. A little more rain here at midweek? Oh, no. Well, we'll sort all that out for you in my forecast coming up next.
Those stories and more next on News 8 at 6 o'clock.
You're watching Indiana's Own, Wish TV, Channel 8. Now, Mike Ahern, Debby Knox, Fred Kalil, and Stan Wood. Live from Wish TV, this is Indiana's Own, News 8 at 6 o'clock.
Good evening. It is 6 o'clock, and here's what's making news tonight. A widely publicized Hancock County murder trial came to an abrupt halt today, not to be restarted until late next month. Brothers Stan and Ross Wright are charged in the April 20th stabbing death of Ed Freeland. Freeland's wife, Teresa, has already pleaded guilty to conspiracy in the alleged murder-for-hire case. Our Rick Dawson tells us now the case was put on hold today after a defense attorney revealed evidence usually inadmissible in court last week.
The evidence is a lie detector test given to alleged co-conspirator Teresa Freeland. Defense attorney Richard Schriever told the jury about the test during opening arguments last week to try and show how her version of the story may have changed. Jurors in the trial were told to disregard that evidence.
We knew there was a question of legality because we were sent out so hurriedly the other day on Wednesday afternoon. And after about an hour, they brought us back in, and then the judge asked us, each one of us, if we had seen certain evidence that was there.
The prosecutor then asked for a mistrial, which was granted by Judge Richard Payne late Monday morning.
Oh, I was quite surprised, yes.
Why is that?
It's just the way the whole thing's been going.
Wright's family was angered by the decision.
I wanted it to be over with. Stan wanted it to be over with. He's been in here too long.
The defense admits Stan Wright was involved in an affair with Teresa Freeland, but denies any involvement in the killing. The mistrial means the court will have to undergo another long jury selection process.
Now we have a whole new layer of publicity that's going to exist, and how that's going to affect another jury. We'll just have to wait and see.
Said the deputy prosecutor during court, it's a tragedy the taxpayers' money and time have been wasted. But we didn't cause that. In Greenfield, Rick Dawson, Wish TV, News 8.
And tentatively, a new trial date is being set for October 23rd.
An escapee from an Indianapolis work release center was shot and killed this morning by an off-duty Indianapolis police officer during a robbery. The second of two Eastside motel robberies took place at this Holiday Inn. 32-year-old Wesley Hutchin of Whiteland was caught running from the lobby by patrolman Clifford Van Buskirk, who was working security at the time. The officer reportedly yelled for Hutchin to stop.
He turned and pulled the gun up and pointed it at Officer Van Buskirk. At this time, he fired one shot, and it struck the man in the right side.
Hutchin is a suspect in several other hotel robberies since his escape from this work release center in July 19th. According to those who knew him, Hutchin was a career criminal.
When he was around 18, he stole a bunch of checks and was charged with forgery back in, and since then he's been in and out of prisons all his life.
For what?
For forgery and theft and house burglary.
Officer Van Buskirk has been taken off patrol pending an investigation of the shooting by the Police Firearms Review Board.
The ex-wife of suspended Madison County physician Dr. Pravin Tucker has joined the group of women taking him to court. As Mark Voigtman explains, Dr. Tucker's latest legal problem concerns child support payments.
The petition filed in a Madison County court asks that Dr. Tucker be held in contempt for allegedly cutting off child support payments to his ex-wife Bhavana Tucker for care of his 11-year-old son. The petition says that Tucker stopped paying in May of this year. The ex-wife, who lives in California, also asked the court to order Tucker to pay the cost of her traveling here. The continuing allegations against Tucker are that he routinely propositioned and had sex with his female patients, getting them pregnant and later aborting their fetuses without their consent during supposedly routine examinations.
Dr. Tucker has not been practicing medicine for quite a while now. His medical license was suspended when the allegations first came out. This week was to have been the time when state authorities decided whether his license should be permanently revoked. But recently, attorneys for both sides once again agreed to a postponement of the proceedings.
By agreeing to a postponement, Dr. Tucker gives up any chance at practicing medicine anytime soon, but he also avoids this, another public airing of the many complaints against him, something that could end his medical practice for a long time. In the meantime, Tucker has been winning in court. One woman's case against him has been dismissed for now, and a separate effort is underway to torpedo this woman's lawsuit. She says Tucker aborted her nearly full-term fetus, but Tucker's attorney argues her lawsuit was filed after the statute of limitations ran out. Mark Voigtman, Wish TV, News 8.
In responding to the ex-wife's claim that the doctor is not keeping up with child support payments, Tucker's attorney today said his client's income has declined substantially since the allegations came out. The attorney says he will ask for a reduction in those child support payments.
A federal investigation of the generic drug industry is bringing an Indianapolis company under scrutiny. The Food and Drug Administration has been looking into reports of manufacturing and record-keeping irregularities. Special assignment reporter Eric Halverson says those reports are raising some serious questions about the faith that we can put in generics. Eric?
Well, first of all, Debbie, generics are drugs that were once protected by patent, and once those patents expire, other drug companies can move in and make the products too. Quad Pharmaceuticals in Indianapolis is one such company.
The FDA says Quad Pharmaceuticals makes drugs for injection at this plant on the Indianapolis northwest side. They're drugs which would be used primarily in hospitals for cancer treatment. But last summer, the FDA found problems in a drug sample from Quad.
Well, it just didn't pass. So as part of that, we went to the firm and did an investigation. And during that, we discovered some problems in general.
A congressional subcommittee chaired by Michigan Congressman John Dingell is looking into similar problems at all but 2 of a dozen pharmaceutical companies investigated. Dingell says what he's learned so far raises doubts about the quality of generic drugs.
We regret that we can no longer be sure that generic drugs are safe, and we regret that we can no longer be sure that they are effective.
What this means to Quad has not been determined.
But if they do find a problem with some of these items, they could withdraw their license to manufacture them, and they also could ask them to recall what's already out on the market.
This afternoon, a spokesman for Quad Pharmaceuticals said the problems might have been avoided if the FDA had been a little more cooperative, or if it had planned a little more, in the sense that there is a difference between producing injectable drugs and producing tablets or capsules, and there are not adequate guidelines in Quad's opinion. So had those guidelines been in place, Quad says some of these problems might not have been under investigation today.
Okay, we have a question back here, Eric. Any reports of any serious reactions from Quad drugs that happen to be under investigation?
Well, both FDA and Quad say there have been no problems caused by these drugs. There have been reviews and no problems, nothing to cause a compromise in safety, as they put it.
Okay, Eric Halverson in our newsroom. Thank you very much.
And still coming on News 8 at 6 o'clock, the I-STEP results are in, and the news is not good.
And Liz Daly will have a live eye report from Washington Township, where a group of minority parents are concerned about how their children are being treated in school.
I'm Jim Shella at a daycare center opening attended by Jack Kemp, the HUD secretary in Indianapolis, coming up.
Jack Kemp is in Indianapolis. The U.S. Secretary of Housing and Urban Development is on a 24-hour visit that is equal parts politics and government. Jim Shella reports on some campaign-style appearances.
Jack Kemp came to Indianapolis in part to fulfill a promise made to Mayor Hudnut on the day he was selected to George Bush's cabinet. Hudnut was a runner-up to become HUD secretary, and he asked that the president's choice bring his influence here. Kemp came to talk about what his agency is doing to help create affordable housing.
I think we can be successful in turning HUD around towards what its mission should be: home ownership, opportunity, hope.
But politics had as much to do with Kemp's visit as anything. At noon, he hosted a fundraiser for Mayor Hudnut here at the Columbia Club, $1,000 a head. Tonight, there's a fundraiser for Senator Coates.
And everywhere Kemp traveled today, both Coates and Hudnut were nearby. An appointed senator, Coates faces election next year. Hudnut would only say that money raised today will help him make statewide political appearances. Everyone tried to steer the attention away from politics.
What's more important than politics, what's more important than philosophical differences, is reaching out to people and providing help that they need.
When it comes to the community, when it comes to building a better democracy so we can show the world that we know how to make this thing work, let's put aside politics.
Protests aside, it was a day that had the look of a political campaign, breathing new life into an old question: what is the mayor running for? On the east side, Jim Shella, WISH TV, News 8.
Secretary Kemp returns to Washington in the morning.
Results of the second annual I-STEP tests are in, and they show Hoosier kids are barely making the grade when it comes to science and social studies. State School Superintendent H.D. Nevin says a little more than half of the 3rd, 6th, 8th, and 11th graders who took the I-STEP test in March had sufficient science and social studies skills. Evans says that's close to the national average, all right, but it is way behind other developed countries.
We have to ask ourselves, why is that happening? Is it because our students are not going to school as many days as students in other countries? Is it because of the home influence, which I think is a fairly sizable reason for our students not doing well?
Evans says the test results can help individual school districts target weaknesses and make curriculum improvements. This is the first year the I-STEP test has included science and social studies.
Another school district, another problem. In Washington Township, a group of parents is meeting tonight to discuss concerns about the way black students are being treated in the Washington Township schools. Our Liz Daly joins us live now from the site of tonight's meeting. And Liz, what can we expect to hear tonight?
Well, Debbie, basically tonight, parents who have black students enrolled in the Washington Township school system and some students themselves will air their concerns to the superintendent and to some members of the school board tonight here at United Methodist Church. Now, blacks make up about 25% of the enrollment in Washington Township. That's about 2,400 students. Members of the Concerned Minority Parents Coalition cite an insensitivity towards blacks by teachers and administrators, saying there is not enough emphasis on black history. Disciplinary action is higher among black students, as well as the dropout rate. Now, tonight's meeting, the coalition says, comes after 2 years of trying to work with administrators to improve relations. Work members say has produced little, if no, results. Now, the president of that coalition is with me now, Bernard White. What do you hope will come from tonight's meeting?
What we hope to do is have the children focus on the issues and shed some light on their concerns, and in hopes of gaining some type of concrete solutions to some of the problems that exist.
Okay, so basically we'll be getting reaction from the students themselves so we can really see what the impact is like inside the schools from them. Will there be any other meetings, or is this the only hearing?
Well, we've scheduled a series of hearings, and we'll probably try to have one each month. And probably four hearings.
Okay, Bernard White, thank you very much. Now, parents who have students enrolled in the Washington Township schools are invited to attend tonight's meeting, which gets underway at 7 o'clock here at United Methodist Church on Grandview Drive. Debbie?
Okay, Liz Daly reporting live. Thank you very much.
And coming next, Dan's forecast right after this.
Time for weather and time to dry out a little bit, Stan. We need some sunshine bad, I'll tell you. We got it today.
Saturday, we have had our limit of rain for this year, I expect, so far.
I'm going to talk about that in a couple of minutes. About this time every year, people say, well, I think summer has worn out its welcome. I don't know about you, but I'm ready for some cool, crisp autumn weather. We'll hang tough. In a couple of 3 days, we're going to take delivery on that stuff. Today, well, not that bad today. Our high was 78, normal high is 80. Our overnight minimum was 60. And hooray, no rainfall here today. The pollen count was down, too, only 188 grains. And at 6 p.m. under cloudy skies, 72 at the airport and 75 downtown. The dew point at 61 degrees. Our relative humidity 68%. A breeze at 7 miles per hour from the northeast and rising barometric pressure at 30.10 inches of mercury. Now, about that rain. Well, there isn't any here in Indiana, but as you can see, there's a big cluster of it over the Show Me State, Missouri, on down into Arkansas. Northern Texas earlier today got up to 3 inches of rain, but that has moved south. And up along the Appalachian chain, they're getting pretty good thunderstorm activity as well. It's all coming out of that cloud mass and down over Missouri, this high cloudiness here. And all of that being generated by the cold front that brought us those swamping rains on Saturday and early Sunday. A secondary cold front pushing toward Indiana. Behind it, much cooler, drier air. As a matter of fact, over portions of the Dakotas, eastern Montana, frost and freeze warnings tonight. That is a cold air mass. So tomorrow, the high a little closer. That front will scoot through Indiana late tonight and early tomorrow, preceded by downstate, maybe some light sprinkles. But I think we're going to share sunshine and cloud for most of tomorrow, along with comfortable readings in the 70s and a little drier air as well. My immediate forecast for you for tonight, partly cloudy to cloudy, overnight low of 59 degrees, the wind from the northwest at 10. Tomorrow, a mixture of sunshine and clouds. It'll be mild with a high tomorrow of 72 and a north breeze. Tomorrow night becoming cloudy again with a low of 60. This part we don't care for. Wednesday, cloudy. There may be some light rain at times, probably will be, and a high of only 70 under those clouds. Thursday then drying up, partly cloudy and a high of 70. Friday and Saturday, fair weather, and we'll rise through the 50s at night and through the 70s by day. Now, a minute ago, you guys were asking about all this water. Well, Indy underwater is what we call this little feature. Our normal yearly precipitation here is 39.12 inches. So far this year, we've exceeded that whole year's supply, 39.96, almost 40 inches. And with 3.5 months to go, we're 11.19 inches above normal. Think how much snow that would be.
Yes.
No, don't think about that.
So much for the drought, I guess, too.
35 of those inches on Saturday.
And in your basement.
Well, that much now. Thank you, Stan.
You bet.
Coming next, Fred Kalil with sports in Anderson. Right after this. Time for sports now. My wife says that it seems like there are football games that begin on Friday and end on Monday.
She's right.
In
I
this
think
case,
she's right.
there is one.
Right.
What happened? You know, this game went to overtime.
No.
Did it
Yes,
really?
it did. It went to overtime.
Oh, my
Madison
God.
Heights and Highland up here in Anderson. That's where we're live right now at Collier Field. Highlights of that great game coming up in just a minute. But first, let's talk about the Cubs and Expos from Wrigley Field today. Fitzgerald, the catcher for the Expos, kind of goes to the ump. Hey, Dad, could you kind of fix my mask for me, please? Cubs jump on the board early. Sean Dunston, Marquise Grissom dives, can't get it, and 2 runs score. 2-0, Cubs on top, and Dunston has a triple. And then listen to Harry Carey. I've heard of cloud 9, but
boy, they're really on cloud 16 right now.
I guess that refers to the magic number of the Cubs. Tim Wallach singles to right field. It scores Marquise Grissom, the former Indian. It's 2-1. Now with the score tied 2-2, Luis Salazar at the plate. Mark Langston walks in the tying run to make it 3-3. Then Jerome Walton comes up with a base hit. It scores the game-winning run, and the final score, the Cubs beat the Expos 4-3. Tough opening loss for the Colts in the Dome to the world champion 49ers, 30-24. Jim Barber is in our newsroom. He has more on that and another breaking story. JB?
Yeah, Fred, there still seems to be some bad feeling between some of the people in Baltimore and the fact that the team was taken from Baltimore here to Indianapolis. Colts owner Bob Irsay said today at the Downtown Quarterbacks Club luncheon that as recent as last week, he received a death threat regarding the team's name, namely the Colts. Irsay said he is not letting the name go. He has reported that threat along with several others he has received to the FBI. Now, as for activity on the field, here's the latest on the 0-1 Colts.
First off, some encouraging news. The Creature, offensive tackle Kevin Cole, out recently with a knee problem, may start Sunday in Anaheim against the Rams. Also, in search of better field position, the Colts plan to use Andre Rison or Clarence Verdane on kickoffs from time to time in the games ahead. And Ron Meyer and staff will analyze the defensive back battle between Chris Good and John Baylor. Baylor started yesterday. Good relieved him in the third. Now to the unpleasant news. No one has found a way to erase yesterday's opening game loss to the 49ers or to erase the memory of some of the painful things that occurred.
Head coach Ron Meyer spoke today to the Downtown Quarterback Club. He also spoke to the media. Meyer last night spent a rather sleepless evening in which he pondered, among other things, what if?
What if the Colts hadn't committed what Meyer called horrendous penalties yesterday? An offsides penalty that led to a Roger Craig touchdown, an unsportsmanlike penalty that led to a Mike Cofer field goal. And what if the blitz had worked in the fourth quarter as opposed to failing when Jerry Rice burned Indianapolis for the game-winning score? What if?
I mean, we're human too. Second guessing is just not eliminated to the, or just not your own territory. And I say that in a very positive way. I don't mind. We're human. We play the what if game 1,000 times.
On the subject of second guessing and analyzing, in lieu of yesterday's loss and the fact the Colts haven't won an opener since they came to this city, Meyer addressed the attention focused on the Indianapolis Colts history of lousy Septembers.
And there's usually a reason why, rather than a psychological reason, which everybody in the media wants to dwell on so much, or usually a reason is probably a pretty good opponent going against you and really shooting yourself in the heel, for lack of a better reason. Let's wait till this September's over, then evaluate it.
We will do that. All right, back to you, Freddie.
Thank you very much. Again, coming up at 11 o'clock, highlights of the Highland 33-27 victory over Madison Heights, a game that was continued from Friday night here at Collier Field in Anderson. Also on Monday Night Football, the Giants at Washington at 8 o'clock. And Mike and Debbie will throw it back to you. And it's going to be great highlights. I couldn't believe this game. It turned out to be a great one.
You had a touchdown on live at 5 o'clock.
I can believe that was Ed Nunn that ran that thing back.
Okay, Fred, thanks. Back right after this. That wraps up our first expanded newscast. We'll be back again, of course, tomorrow at 5 o'clock.
And that's our news. I'm Debbie Knox.
I'm Mike Ahern. Our next newscast, 11 o'clock. We'll see you then. And Dan Rather with the CBS Evening News is next. Thank you.